Last week we did effectively the housing policy that we had, but not just about housing. It's about other things like livability, culture, the quality of life. This is about business and agri essentially, and how we can see Limerick becoming way more powerful and more prosperous as a result of that. In a week's time, we do the healthy policy, and then we finally wrap it all together on May 9th. We'll bring it together and say how the role of the mayor can actually change the way in which local government and these kind of important policies are actually delivered in a place like Limerick. Now, a lot of the time when I talk about this, especially in a forum like this, you get people who are worried and consumed by the small things that matters in their life. And sometimes it's hard to get that time if you're running a business and you're trying to get it to survive the month, or you're trying to run a household and you're worried about that. It's a bit hard to sort of step back and see what the world around us is doing. But I'm not the only one that actually does that. And unfortunately, Barry couldn't be here tonight. But I want to just play a short video that explains why I kind of talk in large scale about the potential of Limerick. And I'm certainly not the only one. So recently, there was a Shannon Estuary Task Force, and they put out a little report about it. And I think I'm going to just play this for 2 or 3 minutes first, so that everything I'm going to say after that fits into the right context.
The Shannon Estuary is the natural front door for Europe. We have the unique combination of sheltered deep water right next to this infinite energy supply, green energy supply that is Atlantic wind. And we have land that is ideal to harvest the full potential of that wind. We have the capabilities and skills here in the region to make that all happen. We see this region as the first phase of an Atlantic green digital corridor that stretches really from Cork to Donegal, inland of the Wild Atlantic Way. The first phase of a huge economic opportunity for Ireland, for all of Ireland. So in this first phase, we believe that we can create an incremental 50,000 high-quality green jobs locally. And this region can become carbon net zero by 2035. Let's show you now how, working together, we can reverse the centuries-old trend of economic migration from this region by focusing on these opportunities.
While the Shannon Estuary is located alongside our greatest wind resource in Europe, if not the world, we've quantified that there's up to 70 gigawatts on our doorstep. That is a hugely unique resource, and is quantified per our task force report of an investment value of 90 to 120 billion euro. We can service up to 52 million homes, where currently Ireland's demand or domestic need is 2 million homes. So that's green energy. So what we have here is an infinite supply of green energy to the scale of 70 gigawatts, which is an infinite resource. And that therefore puts the Shannon Estuary being alongside that resource, if you like, with a significant comparable advantage to any other region across the world. So what we have to identify is numerous route to markets. And one of those route to markets is the development of hydrogen production. We can transfer that energy around Ireland or around the world. Obviously, there's a number of route to markets for this energy, hydrogen being one, but also the potential to develop a supergrid, which is really an integrated grid across Europe. What we have is a surplus or an infinite supply of green energy. So that is in huge demand from downstream sectors such as pharmaceuticals, data centres, ICT, agriculture. So that is absolutely transformational for this country. Immediately, what we need to do is build the enabling infrastructure, which essentially is port infrastructure, large-scale port infrastructure, because we want to develop at scale, and therefore the development of our new Foynes Deepwater Jetty and also the Green Atlantic Moneypine project are absolutely critical to kickstart this industry.
So I think there you have it. I think sometimes we just forget what's on our doorstep and the future that we could build. And just to sort of put some of those things in context, the 50,000 jobs that was referred to there are green jobs. That's not all of what Limerick could have. We could actually have another 30 or 40,000 jobs on top of that in the next number of years, which by comparison, you know, if you look at what we've created since the last crisis, which is only 35,000, you see the absolute scale of potential that's there for Limerick to actually build on that. That's sort of why when I talk about the More for Limerick campaign, it's very much, there is so much potential there for us to build on, and we just need to just keep with this new ambition. And so we have our three sort of main messages, I suppose, of our campaign, is that we need Limerick to have much more ambition for itself. We need to have more actions, and we need to have them happening without delays, because we have to move fast if we want to seize the opportunity. Because what was described in the video there, I can assure you there are people watching videos like that in Portugal and in other parts of Europe, and we're not all going to win that prize. It's going to be the first to the finishing line, or the second, but not everybody. So we need to move quickly, and for that we need to have more delivery. Now, as we're going through these couple of days, what we've done is we've sort of broken up our pillars into a more livability pillar, as I said, a more prosperity, a more health. And if you look at the next slide, which is our more livability, for those who weren't able to make it last day, although I do see some familiar faces, so thank you again for coming on both days. We pretty much try to outline that when we get to talk about that pillar, it's not just about housing. It's not just about bricks and mortar. It's about making Limerick a more desirable place to actually live. It's about having a safer and more community-driven Limerick. It's about what we do to use culture and visual and performance arts, and sometime a bit later we're going to talk about creativity in a business context, but it's also part of just what we are when we're actually living in our daily lives. We want to have much better public realm in terms of putting people at the beginning of that, and we want to talk about the way we actually get around. And I know a lot of people are stuck in traffic here today, and so I really do appreciate you taking time and knowing that was there. And that's one of the roadblocks to development that needs to be delivered in the next couple of years, with a focus on heritage and a focus on, frankly, just having a bit more fun. Which is interesting, because the one thing I'm hearing resonating about our campaign a lot among people is the idea that we're actually talking about having a Limerick that is actually fun, because that's a really important part of how we live. Now, most of the campaign up to now has been fun, but I want to just give you a little short story about an event I was at last night, which was a lot less than fun. I was asked by the consul, the Brazilian consul here in Limerick, to actually attend an event with the ambassador who was in town over a young chap, Donica, I'm after giving him an Irish name, Roberto, that had actually moved to Limerick 2 years ago. And you probably heard the story about how he was beaten up on his way home to the house where he was living with his wife. And what was so sad about that story was this was somebody who would save for 6 months to actually come to Limerick, because his friend lived here and he was going to learn English language sort of here. And last night he was telling me he can't stay because he just can't face walking home anymore. He can't face the lack of trust that he has in his environment. And these are all really serious issues that we have to confront in Limerick. And it's not just about more policing. It's about going to the core of those issues in terms of how we actually resolve those. And the great thing about last night was there was a community coming together that actually was convinced that they could find a better way to solve this problem. I kind of feel he'll be back on the holidays, but sadly his dream has been broken. And we have to find a way, coming together as a community, to actually make sure that there are no more similar situations there. And try and present sort of, this vision in a way that actually continues to appeal to people in terms of how they're going. Because when I talk about Limerick being one of the most desirable places in the world to live, it is going to have to become a magnet for talent for the businesses of Limerick, so that we can actually continue to grow the businesses at the scale we need. We can't afford to go back to a world where people are afraid to move to Limerick. And that needs real attention in the context, not just of getting more policing and stuff like that, as others have said, but as you'll find later in our next slide, the pillars that we've chosen for business include some very important pillars to me, like an opportunity for all. Now, when I started to prepare for tonight, I suppose I started to think about what the questions I've been teasing out with Patrick and others about what makes Limerick the most desirable place. Is it community? Is it our natural environment? Is it our sporting teams? And of course, we know it's not one thing. So it's this web of complex policies and complex actions that come together in terms of making a place the best place to live. We talked about the quality of life stuff that we want to drive forward last week. And now this is about another aspect of that, which is that we know that people are never, money, they say, does not buy happiness. But on the flip side, if you're faced every month with not knowing if you've got enough money to get through the month or not to help out a friend that needs a bit of help, then you're certainly not going to be happy about life. And so this concept of prosperity is really important, both in terms of how you gain wealth and how you get income, but also being certain that the type of shocks that we've seen recently in COVID and others, the energy crisis, that we actually as a region are prepared to deal with those shocks, and if they come, that we can gather together in order to deal with them. And I suppose that means that while I think I've been asked, why are you putting so many pages together in these policies? Why have you got so many actions? Why have you got so many things? It is because the world is complex out there. We're dealing with like technological change. We're dealing with wars. We're dealing with a Europe that is reinventing itself at the moment. And I think it's really important that as we go into this election, that we are asking the new leaders of Limerick, all the candidates, how are they going to navigate through this maze of complexity that we have to deal with. And I'd have loved to have only had 5 different pillars up there today in terms of this. But as we started going through them, we realized that it was really difficult to map out a strategic course for Limerick on a simplistic way. We wanted, though, to get certain values through all of our policies, the values of and the importance of education, the importance of hard work, how we blend our economic strength with the diversity that we now have in our communities. And I suppose we have a lovely mix in Limerick of tradition coming together with innovation. And we want to see that sort of blend together as, I suppose, 2 rivers in our city centre come together so seamlessly. Because when you think about the Limerick that we know, and everybody in the room thinks that, look, the potential is just so untapped as it is broad. And we have to find a way to blend together technology, for example, in our agricultural sector. We may talk about a little about that later in the panel. We have to look at our engineering sector, our manufacturing sector, which have huge potentials for the area, but not if they stay still. They need to move forward into the type of new technologies that are there. And I suppose one important thing for me is this creative pulse that we are beginning to see really develop in our city with music and film and theatre and fashion, and how we harness that to create a really interesting place. And that's why this vision is much more integrated in terms of business across all of these many areas. And I want to try and develop a policy that cherishes the sort of the core of Limerick about that, which is in some ways its community. When we look at these 14 areas, actually, sorry, 15, we added one, I forgot like yesterday, at the end, which was keeping our talent, which I think we decided we wanted to add into this. We have this issue of preparing for the future and thinking about what's around the corner. Don't run blind into neither opportunities or risks. We have the challenge of climate change as it rains down on top of me very heavily here. But we also have the opportunity that creates us to become an energy exporter in terms of offshore wind. One that I suppose I know everybody in this room supports when I say as being one of the most important is how do we have an equal opportunity for everybody in our city so that they don't feel left out by our society and they don't cause problems like the ones I was describing from the earlier meetings, because they should be part of the same future. We have an SME and Indigenous business sector that has to be the core of where we go into the future, as FDI is less certain into the future in places like Ireland. We have an amazing agricultural industry, but I think there's an opportunity, as I described in the policy, to turn that into an amazing food industry right here, which in turn leads on to food tourism, and in turn leads to actually all of us just loving where we live a lot more because there's just so much more to do. We have an opportunity with artificial intelligence to integrate that into the way we live, the way our communities operate, the way our local authority operates, and then to take advantage of that beyond that. And that overlaps with this creative industry pillar that we have a lot of issues on. Manufacturing and engineering I've already referred to, and then there is the concept of the fact that we love shopping. I think everybody in this room in one way or other loves to go to a shop, and yet we see that our shops are struggling with the changes in behaviour, and we have a responsibility to respond to that and to make sure that the shops, not just in the shopping centres around our city, but deep in our city centre and indeed in our towns and villages, are also prospering. It wouldn't be a surprise that given that we said last week we're going to build thousands of houses, that we need to support the construction industry. We need to find ways to get more talent on the pipeline of construction so that we don't have logjams like we have in Ireland from lack of planning, stopping us from building the houses we so badly need. We have a number of representatives I know here, and Elena being one obviously, who know the power that tourism can bring to Limerick. And tourism is not just about King John's Castle and the Hunt Museum. It's actually about the small tourist businesses that are dotted right across the county, because as I know from my time in the department back 10 years ago, tourism, which when we dropped the VAT rate, was such an important part of actually bringing jobs back to places outside of the M50. And we can do the same here in Limerick. We do need to revitalise our city centre, and I think we all know that deep down. We have an amazing foothold in FDI, but that can be so much better when we're the ones in the world that can say we have free energy, which effectively we'll have if we embrace Barry's vision there. And none of this will work unless we can find a way to keep our young people in Limerick. We are graduating way more people every year than we are keeping in Limerick, and we need to change that. And we need to set our ambition to a level where we actually don't allow our young people to decide that the best place for their opportunity is outside of the Midwest. And I suppose it wouldn't come as a surprise for somebody who used to run the finance department or the Department of Finance that I don't believe that we leverage our public wealth properly. And by that I don't mean just disused buildings, I mean the state lands that we own, but I also mean the social wealth that we have. The education of our population and making sure. One of the statistics I came across that really shocked me about Limerick is that over 10% of our population have only got a primary education. And that is something that has to change. Now, that is a generational thing. We're going to have to get into those families. We're going to have to work our way through them in collaboration with the universities so that we can actually find a way that all of our residents of Limerick can participate in the new prosperity that with a bit of luck we'll see if we actually can deliver these plans. Elena has mentioned the date. I'll just mention it again, even though I think everybody in the room knows it, but just in case anybody's watching the video, it's the 7th of June. It's probably one of the most important dates for Limerick for a long time. We actually get the opportunity, and I think we have to think about the importance of this election, to finally choose somebody who can manage a very significant budget, who can manage a very large workforce that work for the city in ways that can deliver the type of vision that I've just outlined. We need to make that choice carefully. And what worries me at the moment is that I think that there are a number of people that don't think Limerick can change. I think they actually believe that we will plod along for another 10 years or another 20 years like we have done for the last couple, improving a little bit and not grasping the opportunity that was described in the video earlier. And I want to say to those people that we're not going to let that happen in this election. This election is going to be about making a decision for what Limerick wants. And I think they're counting on a sort of an apathy in Limerick towards this election, driven a lot by an inability to understand the power of the election. I think those of you who've been driving around Limerick recently and see some of the ads that have been coming out, which while they're helpful to tell us that there is an election, they're not doing a good job of explaining the importance of the election. And I think I ask everybody here in this room and everybody who watches this video to try and help to explain that to other people, because we've seen too much in Ireland and we see it across Europe, dissatisfaction with the political process. Too many people now actually believe that they've been turned away from voting because they don't believe their voice counts anymore. But it does. And it counts in Limerick on the 7th of June. We have an opportunity to believe that there is a better future. And we have an opportunity to choose a candidate. Now, I'm standing for election, as you know, and I'm asking you all to trust me, to choose me as your mayor, because I believe there's a much better future for Limerick. And I believe it takes a certain independence, it takes a certain level of expertise, and a certain level of track record to get everybody in Limerick together so that we can deliver that vision. And to lead from the front by asking, as I said in my launch, more of myself in delivering that. Now, all we're asking tonight is that you do a little bit of tweeting. If there's anything, I won't be upset if you're on your phone during the panel conversation. But as Elena said, just pick 3 friends tonight and just talk about the importance of this election to them. And they will hopefully get asked to pick another 3 friends, and so it will go on. The time is relatively short, but there's still enough time. We aren't being well served in some ways by our media, who aren't covering this in the detail that we need to do so. So it's really important for me, it's really important for Limerick, that actually the conversation begins now about the future that we want. And so thank you very much for listening. The conversation is about to get really interesting next, because we're going to have a panel of 3 people that have agreed to come to share different views here tonight with us. Aoife, who's down we'll ask you to maybe come up, Aoife. Aoife, I think actually is known by most of the people who've ever travelled to Adare, but is one of the creatives that we have in Limerick that has stayed in Limerick, and we certainly hope that she'll be staying. Fiona, well, maybe John, maybe you come up next, then we can do it. John is here to represent, in a way, I suppose, my upbringing, which is an agricultural upbringing. But I was talking to him earlier, and I know he has a lot more ideas about what Limerick should be, and we'll try and drift that through in terms of the presentation. If you want to come up as well, John Bateman, who I think people also know. And then Fiona Murphy, whose daughter should be somewhere in the room, is she, or has she abandoned you already, Fiona? Who I've worked with in Takumi, which is one of those engineering firms that I mentioned. And Fiona is certainly one of those leaders that leads from the front, and so I wanted to have her views tonight as well. So you can give a big round of applause to everybody in it. I will try and sort of lead this, and we'll just do it as a conversation, and we'll do about maybe 10 minutes or so, or a quick kind of a conversation. We'll open it up to the audience for questions, so that if they want to actually, come with questions, we could just continue the conversation, and we'll do that. You and I spoke a little bit earlier, because I see your industry as one of the real future industries of Limerick that we probably don't know we even have. I mean, for people that haven't understood, maybe just describe the fashion school that we have, the power of that, and one or two of the ideas I put in the booklet that maybe resonated with you in that sector.
Yeah, so 100%. So I studied here in Limerick School of Art and Design, which is in Limerick City. And just to, I suppose, even speak about the contacts that college has, is I interned with Marc Jacobs in New York, so it has incredible contacts all over the world and really brings out incredible students traveling all over the world. And I think what I really love from reading your proposal on, I suppose, the creative side was trying to keep more creatives in Limerick. I feel like that's a huge issue. Even when I graduated back in 2018, I left to go to Paris for a year, but then I came back. But that's because my family have businesses here. I felt like my other friends didn't really know where to start or what to even do, even if they did want to start a business, because there's no support. The local enterprises are great, but other than that, there wasn't anything. So I'd love to see more creatives stay. I think, there's such incredible talent that come out of Limerick School of Art and Design. Nobody stays. Everybody's gone to cities with a bit more excitement, and I'd love to see it like somewhere like Galway or Cork or Dublin, where there's sort of a creative hub and excitement where people actually want to set up a business.
Okay, that's great. And to try and draw some of that, I mean, as we were talking, I mean, that's where valuing these public assets is a really important pillar. It might seem like it's esoteric, but that comes from doing a survey of all the buildings we have across the city and across the state, and in our particular part of it, and actually finding something so that you blend that together. And for me, the power we talked about, another one in manufacturing, I don't think we showcase Limerick. So it's hard to walk around Limerick and actually see the work that's been done by the fashion industry, first of all, even the film industry. We've talked about, you did a little bit for me down in the Hunt Museum about showcasing Limerick engineering. Maybe you could just explain a little bit about that project and what you think about this idea of having a pavilion just to showcase Limerick engineering.
Experience so far of John has been that he gets things done. And I don't know how we got involved with the Hunt Museum and how this all came about, but we absolutely made it happen. And it was really driven on by John. And I think you were so passionate about the concept of the museum and a garden. And for those of you that don't know, the Hunt Museum located in the city centre, they wanted to bring the artefacts out from behind the walls of the museum and make the art accessible to people that were walking through the garden. So John engaged with us inside in Takumi. A number of our engineers got together. We selected a piece. We dealt fabulously with John and with Jill and with Donica inside the museum. And it really was about bringing those pieces back to life in a way that it wasn't, you weren't disconnected from art as such. So we reproduced our interpretation of a 7th century Etruscan jug, and it's on display in the garden. I think my own height was the measurement of it, so it's on a bit of a plinth, but it's not too small. But I suppose what that signified to me was that there is capability within our own walls in Takumi, but it's all behind those walls. People of Limerick don't see that, they don't experience it, and they don't know it. And there are so many SMEs in the manufacturing space, in the engineering space, that have these world-class capabilities. I mean, we deal with aerospace customers on an international scale, but yet, coming out of Colbert Station, you don't know that there's actually that capability within the city. And the county as well. I mean, there's small firms out in Abbeyfield that are doing incredible things as well. So I suppose it really is such an industrious city, such a manufacturing hub of the Midwest. Our links with Shannon are so close in terms of being the head of aircraft leasing in the world, the aviation sector that's there. So manufacturing and engineering has that capability to have this huge platform because we do compete globally and internationally. So if that small project that you really did get us to execute, quite simply, it can even be a little bit of a blueprint for what Limerick can showcase in terms of the manufacturing capability, then, it's a no-brainer. It attracts talent, it retains talent. The engineering and precision engineering departments in TUS, in UL, you walk into the Burnell Institute in UL, what they are doing, it's beyond academic. This is real stuff. This is real people, going to work every day, living here every day, shopping in the city centre, spending time and coming out to Adair for lunch, maybe popping in Tifa's boutique. So the capability in Limerick, it's ripe to be unlocked, and we just really need to showcase it. So he's done it once. I don't doubt he could do it again.
The challenging thing is the next piece in the Hunt Museum, because the Takumi jug, as it is now known, was followed by Kirby Engineering, who did one, but it was about 3 times taller. And so now we're going to have an Eiffel Tower.
They had a very tall person to measure off, John.
if it keeps going up like that. But this is sort of how it all stitches together in some ways, because doing things like that, it brings culture into people, it brings it alive, it brings more people, as you say, into the city centre. We talk about how do we revitalise the city centre, and it's doing stuff like that. It's doing that across the rest of the city, and how to just draw all those different people, because you say there are great actors. Now, I didn't even practice this panel, as you can probably tell, but Fiona just handed the ball over there to John by mentioning about the great work that's been done in farms. John, I wanted to ask you particularly about the concept that's been developing in our consultations about that farm incomes are in real trouble at the moment here in Limerick, and they're under a lot of pressure. And is there a way in which we can, and I wrote about this in the Independent, actually, in the Farming Independent recently, about the fact that when I lived in France, I see way more local production by farmers being sold locally, and you kind of, I dare say, cut out the middleman. But also you don't have food travelling across the world. You eat locally and seasonally. Is there an opportunity? I'm looking at Patricia Robertson, one Perry, who I know showcases a lot of local produce. Is there an opportunity for Limerick to do a lot more there?
There isn't. Like, Ireland is kind of unique. We have the capability of growing enough food to feed probably 10 times our own population. the agriculture in Ireland exports, right? But what we have here as a directly elected mayor is we have an opportunity to grow Limerick, and rural Limerick is what I'd like to talk about. We have a great opportunity to develop and grow Limerick with joined up thinking, is what I'd call it. There's Limerick as a county. I live outside in the middle of the heart of it. Beautiful place. I was outside mowing with the grass and a lady pulled up on the road and she said, "Oh my God, it's beautiful out here." And it is. But we have an opportunity with this directly elected mayor, with a phenomenal budget, in my opinion, to develop rural Limerick beyond our wildest dreams. Farming is probably on its knees. There's no reason for it. The farms have grown in size, but what Limerick is, it's a county of small farms, and we export most of the food we produce. It's of a very high quality. And what we need to do is, the average age of the farmers is gone crazy old. I'm 62, I'm nearly a young fella, as some of them are going. We need to develop our agriculture to keep the young people in the locality and grow our industry. Like you say, there is room for these small, producing food to sell locally. There is room for it. There's loads of opportunities to develop, be it tourism, small tourism like the girls in their shops, the Greenway, absolutely fabulous. You've Lochore out near me. There's huge opportunities, but we need joined up thinking. We need to keep the young people, as many as possible, at home, be it for the health, for education, for everything. We're educating fabulous people in our universities and colleges, and we're exporting their talents. With joined up thinking, I think Limerick can be a showcase for the whole country. Like, we're getting an opportunity here to be the first directly elected mayor, and we need to get the right person in the job, and I think John could be. But farming, we've been through a horrible spring. Farmers are mentally and financially, I'll call it, bankrupt. Couple of fine days helped their mood. We're back again now. The farmers need help. They don't need to be knocked and vilified for global warming or anything else. The farmers are not. They're custodians of the earth. They want to improve their farm. Their ambition in life is to make improvements and hand it on to the next generation in a better way than they've got it. That's what farmers want to do. And with John, I think we have an opportunity to do that and develop agriculture. I think we have to come to the stage that agriculture is one part of the community, of the rural community. The tourism, the shops, the other. County Limerick, our local village, has no post office, no shop, no pub. It's falling apart. And we need to regenerate the towns and villages and try and keep as many people there as possible. And we'll say planning, services, everything needs to be looked at. And it's kind of urgent, because as farmers, their average age is in their mid-50s. You're in trouble. No. Sorry, John, for going on so long.
No problem. Well, look, I mean, I think there's two things I would take from that. I think that's... I mean, that really resonates with me, because I've never met a farmer who doesn't like the land. And I think there's a sense that they're ruining it, whereas actually I think they really want to just, as you say, pass it on to the next generation in the same way as somebody who owns an old house feels like they are just passing on that old house to somebody else. But I think it's the joined up thinking. What I've not been seeing as I've been trying to do this is actually, and we mentioned it last week, is the sense that each of the places have been asked what they want to do. You know, I don't think that many of our towns or villages have been asked what they see their unique selling point is in that context, and how that gets then passed through in planning. And the mayor, as I think some people know, in the middle of the 5-year term, the next 5-year plan for Limerick gets set, in the middle of all this transformation. And so there's a really fabulous opportunity for us to individually look at all our towns and see how they combine with each other and how they work individually against the challenges, but also the opportunities, and see which will work for different things, because they can't do all the same things. Can I come back to you a minute, just if you don't mind, about Limerick and business, because you're right in the middle of a DARE, and I guess a DARE has the Ryder Cup coming up, and I couldn't possibly talk about for 5 years about tourism and business and everything else without mentioning that. How do you? I have mentioned. Here we go with the rain again. Like, at least the grass will grow anyway if there's a bit of sun tomorrow. We've referred to the fact that we need to have a strategic plan for the Ryder Cup. I don't want the Ryder Cup to be just one of those things that happens and then is gone. I want it to be that opportunity for Limerick to showcase Limerick on a global scale. We talked last week about how we can use it to help our housing crisis, because we'll have to do a lot of surge housing. What do you think we should be doing for maybe a DARE, and maybe for the industry I know you love, to allow what's effectively a tournament coming here to actually take advantage of that?
Yeah, so I think probably it's in nearly collaborating with, I suppose even for me, I have a collaboration with Adair Manor at the moment, and I'm inside their boutique, and it's sort of working with the Manor, seeing what we could do with young Irish talents coming out of Limerick School of Art and Design. How can we get what they're doing in front of people that are coming to the Ryder Cup? Like, so whether it's using the local heritage centre, whether it's using a beautiful space in Adair, there's loads of free spaces around Adair that could be used to showcase up-and-coming Irish talent or Irish designers. So I think it's really about trying to figure out how we can collaborate with Adair and really try to get in front of the people that are coming over, because I think it's really important that, I don't know if they're going to be going into Limerick City, hopefully they will be, but I know from the last one that was in Adair, they do tend to stay around, so I think it's really important to see if we can get something in with Adair Manor and see if we can really collaborate in that way to get it in front of people.
So we'll have Fiona's Medin Limerick Engineering. We'll have to come to Adair for the Ryder Cup. I'll open it maybe to the floor, if you don't mind. I mean, and we can come back if we need to, because I have a question I want to ask you, Fiona, of course, about some of the work you've done in Mayoral, about getting people from areas in Limerick that wouldn't traditionally be in engineering back into Limerick. But maybe we should have planted a couple of questions, of course, in the floor. But have you got a mic there? You have a roving mic? Okay.
Hi lads, just like your thoughts on the possibility of an indoor food market. I can't understand why we don't have something like this. Cork actually, the English market in Cork, and most of us, or many of us, have been lucky enough to be in the continent at this stage. And the first thing you notice is that there's no such thing as a small provincial city without a covered market. And particularly, John, for farmers, is there any way of getting farmers closer to the till, closer to the customer, closer to the consumer? Is there any way of bypassing the big corporate retailers? And I know what you're saying, that Limerick, it's a commodity, it's milk, it's the fuel of Limerick, we all know that. But this has got to be something on the agenda. This has got to be, I mean, you look at the old Debenhams, the old Rocha Stores building on O'Connell Street. What a fabulous market that could be for, our craft and artisan food, artisan jewellery, artisan clothes, right there, empty for 4 or 5 years.
There are two Johns, but you can take this one, because I think you're closer.
I do, but I agree with you, but one of my favourite mornings out is a Saturday morning to the milk market, right? It's an occasion. We'll say it's a lovely morning out, and you can get some fabulous food, and there's fabulous stalls. That's grand, except it's small. Agriculture in Limerick, like you said, it has changed. It's growing larger. You're talking, it's very specialised. You know, they're all doing all beef cattle, or it's all milk, or it's all tillage. That's not going to solve our economic problems, really, in agriculture. It's grand, it's fabulous to have it. It's small scale, has its place, but in the larger picture, that's not what's happening. Farmers they're very isolated in their work. A lot of them are actually, after this bad weather, are really finding under pressure. There's loads of opportunity, like Anne said, that to grow these little small markets, fabulous. Bring people into the city. The centre of the city is dying. Drive down O'Connell Street, all the buildings are dark at night. You know, there's a housing crisis. Half the centre of the city seems empty because all the lights are out upstairs, you know, in apartments and that. O'Connell Street is nearly getting semi-derelict, in my opinion. There's loads of opportunities to grow the city. And the likes of the milk market, fabulous, fabulous. Like I say, one of my favourite mornings out, go in and get breakfast or a cup of coffee or whatever, some veg. They all have their place. And the whole package has to be sold and developed as a county, not a specific part of it, either the city or the country for that matter. Like, you have lovely things going on in the city, and the county bring back to the Greenway, an absolutely mega opportunity. Lochor, beautiful place for a walk. Come back to what I said at the start, it's a golden opportunity to develop Limerick. It's the first in Ireland. We've almost a gateway open to us to develop Limerick. Limerick is a lovely place to live. We have a great opportunity.
One of the things on the markets, I don't know, Colin, in terms of some of the stuff you see in France a lot, which is kind of what has inspired some of our own thoughts, is that the people selling in the markets are actually on a full-time job. But they're going from one market to another market and to another. And the way we've described Limerick working is these 4 city neighbourhoods, which are walkable neighbourhoods. The one in the centre, the one out by the university, the one out in the north side, and over in Raheen. In a place like Paris or Toulouse or some of the other cities, there would be designated spots where you simply put up your stall and they're all marked out and they're cleaned by the city straight away after the market. And it's a market that hangs out for one morning and then go somewhere else for the afternoon. And I think there's a potential with that, because what you can do then is you can actually identify the larger towns like Abbeyfeale or Newcastle West or Kilmallock and even others, and they can have their own markets. And so you literally have, even if you're just in Limerick alone, and then people shop locally. And I think that's a really important part of what I see missing in terms of doing that. And then that encourages the restaurants to brand the food as Limerick food. And if we're eating Limerick food and realise how good it is in Limerick, the secret will get out. And we'll find other places outside Limerick actually branding Limerick food. Maybe I'll take another 1 or 2 questions if... Yeah, please. There's a mic just come.
Regulated out of doing all of this, you know, with planning permission, with whatever rules and regulations are applied by councils or whatever. And I think that's a major problem. And we've been in France recently, you go wherever you go, there's people selling fish, the vegetable markets are amazing. And, you know, it seems like a no-brainer that people can be incentivized to do this. And also, as a shopper, I go to a supermarket, I'm checking my vegetables. I'm getting carrots from God knows where. I'm getting whatever. I don't want to be buying that.
Yeah, no,
I've given up doing that. I actually go to my local butchers because they get deliveries from Kerry or to the supermarket in Adair. They're getting from, you know, somewhere down, I forget where, Castlemaine or somewhere, but at least they're Irish-grown carrots, you know. But that's the annoying thing about it. It's the rules and regulations that, you know, if your carrot isn't this size or whatever, it's no good or whatever. You know,
but I think that's one of the things for me, it's the importance of this role of directly elected mayor. Because Limerick is the only county that will actually have its own directly elected mayor. And in some respects, I think that opens the opportunity. And that's why I don't think it's going to be really something that's important to us. It's important in the first 5 years, but the dividend will come in years after that. Because it opens up the opportunity. One of the things when I was making decisions in Dublin, it was very hard to pick any place to do differently, because you knew that somebody else would be giving out if you did that. And you were looking for an excuse or a justification to do that. If Limerick votes for a mayor that wants to do something about having a little bit more self-regulation in Limerick, or are doing things slightly differently, whether it's housing standards, whether it's the way we run little markets around our towns, we now have an opportunity to use the mayoral office to look for us to do things differently in Limerick. And I think that's a really important power that hasn't been identified in terms of how we actually approach the elections. And when it comes to planning, I can sort of, we have a council process that sets the development plan and sets the main rules for Limerick, subject only to what the national rules are. And I think that allows us, if our councillors all decide that they particularly want to change something like that, then the mayor becomes an advocate for them, with the power both of the mayoral role and the councillors saying Limerick just wants to do things differently, which is, I suppose, again, just to repeat and do a little bit of a PR here, that's why I think this role is best served by somebody who's independent, because they don't have to listen or follow necessarily party rules, and they can say we want Limerick to be best, because no political party can do that, because they have to get votes in other cities. And I think that's really important in the context of the way we select a mayor, that we think of the power that comes from that independence in the ability to put Limerick first and not be conditioned by other rules. There was one question down the back, and I'm conscious I promised I'd have everybody at least able to leave by 8 o'clock, so we'll maybe take one more question.
One of the things that's very important to bear in mind, instead of looking for the minutiae at the moment, to look at the overall picture and be able to break it up into areas. Now, you've got a fashion representative there, and Limerick is known for fashionable ladies. We should concentrate on the fact and realise that there is a negative association with Limerick in the media. That has to be overcome to attract people to come into the place. Any major industry that wants to come in here, the executives and their wives come in and take a look at it, and they go by reputation. So what we have to do is now is a chance to generate this positivity with the potential election on the 7th, realising you, John. When we're talking about aspects to try and develop different sectors within what we're doing at the moment, we have to realise that we have to actually start changing people's minds as to what we can and cannot do. Pardon me, this is probably Helen O'Donnell asking how things are getting on.
Okay. What did you just tweet out a minute ago?
We have, for example, you drive down the Dock Road and you see the port of Shannon Foynes. Why isn't it the port of Limerick? You see a lot of businesses that have trucks going out with their telephone number on, but the word Limerick is not highlighted. It's just an idea that the fact that people don't want to associate with something that's not great news. I think this election has a great opportunity for us to be able to kick that off with positivity. People are saying that there isn't enough variety in the shops in the city. We're known for music in the city. So why not concentrate on bringing bands into the pedestrian part of the city? So when people come in to hear the music and all the rest of it, they may be encouraged to go in and see what the city has to offer with restaurants, pubs, and fashion houses. This is our opportunity to make the positivity going. The Ulster Bank building is up for sale. The mayoral office should be moved from where it is and put in there at the top of the building. And underneath, all the past industries that made Limerick famous can have stands to highlight what Limerick Bacon did, what the silver smiths did in the area. And then on the second floor, your enterprise offices that can help people who want to start businesses. I brought a guy from the Middle East into Limerick to try and meet with the officials to set up a business here. And I was amazed to see that two of the individuals had been seconded from the tax office, the car tax office. Nothing wrong with that, it's an important service. But when your man asked questions, can I do this, can I do that? The answer was like, well, what do you think yourself? What would you like to do? So the positivity is not there. The encouragement is not there. Mm-hmm. And I think with this election, and particularly with you, John, going into it, I don't know what the rest of them are doing, they're wasting their time. But you can give leadership, we can build up, as the people are building up with the GEA, 5 in a row, whatever the score is. When you have some success and it's highlighted nationally, people in Galway and Cork, when something happens, they have somebody in the newspapers who can actually reduce the intensity of the effect of that story. Speaking to a guy who's a guard down in Cork, he said there was about 4 months ago, there was a horrendous after-pub battle in the middle of the town. The following day, the headline was, "Fracas in Cork." If it was happening in Limerick, you'd have fellas giving blood details and all the rest of it. Once you start getting positive, and once you start concentrating on the potential and the ability, we will make progress.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't disagree with that. I mean, and probably my reaction to that is that I think we were making a lot of progress. I think a lot of the negativity that had been associated with Limerick has gone. And in fact, the story I told at the beginning was really a kind of a warning shot to a call that we need to make sure that we don't go backwards in that respect. And I think that's it. Although your comment about the building raises the other issue, just for people to understand, is that these are the type of decisions that a mayor is going to have to make. I mean, about how to actually manage a very large budget of 300 million or so a year on the current spending, and currently it's about 460 million of capital projects across the city, whether it's the bank in Bruff that we were talking about on a recent occasion where money has been put aside and it just hasn't been driven on to actually get the enterprise centre, exactly that kind of enterprise, but it's the Bank of Ireland, not the Ulster Bank. But I had been kind of thinking that the old tourist office down in Arthur's Quay would have made a nice office for a mayor, because it'd be right there and nice and visible, and it's been sitting vacant for a number of years. But listen, I don't know, do you guys want to wrap up with anything on the panel? Oh, one last question then. Okay.
Limerick, as you know, Cleves riverfront, they're getting 450 million to do it up. Now, I've been at a PPN meeting, you know, an SPC meeting, where there's another development down in Arthur's Quay. There's not even joined up thinking on those two. And like, I see that, like, whatever is going to happen in Limerick, tourism should be a big part of it, but it isn't at the moment. It's on the Wild Atlantic Way, buses don't stop in Limerick. And you have developments going on within a few blocks of each other, and they're not even joined up thinking. And I don't care if they want to put offices or residential up, but all that area, when they're getting that kind of investment, should be drawing tourists into Limerick, you know.
Yeah, no.
And it's ridiculous. And you have King John's Castle getting money. You have the Opera House, which is a very glamorous name for another resident tax office building. So, you know, and that's what I think that I hope as mayor that you would really join up thinking on that and to bring it on as a tourist attraction. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Well, we'll definitely be trying. But I think that development in Arthur's Quay is a perfect example of how it's important that we interact with these type of projects when they're happening in the city, because the original 2030 plan for Arthur's Quay actually had a road going through Arthur's Quay. So we were essentially losing Arthur's Quay as a facility. So rather than investing in a big park in the city centre for the residents, the decision was actually to try and do that to facilitate other development. The framework has been worked on at the moment, and I think it's coming out for consultation very shortly for that whole area. And I think it's really important that people engage with these things, because when you don't want something to happen, well, if it's after June, you can call the mayor, so that'll make it a little bit easier, and just give out to them. But it's important that people get involved in these consultations as well, and indeed in this election. And I suppose the last message I will leave for tonight, and you know, is, as I said, to keep talking about this. But the stuff that we've put up on the board, the stuff that we've put in these documents, is there to start a conversation, because I don't think anybody else is having that conversation about what Limerick should look like. We have now 13 candidates in this election. We're still waiting, bar one, to see what their policies are. And I would encourage them, if they're watching the video, to sneak preview what our policies are. That it's about time we see theirs, because either they're taking the national policies of their parties, or they have planned a specific road for Limerick that's different. And it's not fair to ask me, it's not fair to ask any voter in Limerick to go into election without knowing what the other candidates are going to do. And so we will continue on this road next week of actually producing the next policy and then pulling it all together. We have sessions on Saturdays. They're a lot more relaxed. If people want to come from 2:30 till 4:30, they can just come in and ask some of the questions. We can debate some of this stuff. You can even give me ideas for the next policy. Because the super thing, although as you found out with my 14, 15 pillars last night, the super thing about being independent is that when somebody comes with a good idea, you don't have to ask for permission to put it into the policy. You merely have to ask for permission from Limerick to actually do it in an election. So again, just to remind you, it's the 7th of June. I'm going to ask every one of you to remember me. It's John Moran, to give me a number 1. And as Elena said, and I'll ask that again, just talk to 3 of your friends tonight, and if you find another 3 friends to do it. I think Caleb has something he wants to say.
Small one, which is, it's going to seem like I plugged it, but I put everything up on Instagram, John's account, as we were going. And I got 3 questions in, but one that jumped out to me that was important is, how can someone help? How can someone help the campaign? What is it that we need to do?
Okay. Do you want to ask the other 2 questions as well, just in case? Like, just so, because if they've taken the trouble to come in, we should answer them.
Well, the other 2, one was on why are you running as an independent, and the other one was on how many actions do you think you can actually deliver?
Okay, so the independence is easy. I've mentioned that. It's because I think it's Limerick first. And for the reasons I described, I don't think it's right to be conditioned by party politics. I'm not sure that we have been well served in some respects in Limerick. And I want the freedom that if I'm sitting in front of a Minister of Government to be able to tell them that Limerick is not doing well without feeling like I owe the party something because they gave me their initials to get elected into an election. How you can help is relatively easy. We have volunteer sessions on Wednesday in our elaborate campaign HQ, which I'm listening to the conversations about markets and thinking it would make a great covered market if somebody wants to buy it after the election. It's an old church that we're trying to renovate in the city centre of town. I know some other people have their eyes on it for a nightclub and various other things. But come on the Wednesday. That's at about 5:30, 6 o'clock. You can register on our website, which is www.johnmoran.ie, and then we can actually reach out to you and talk to you. Now, what was the big question I was supposed to get? That one I missed?
How many of the actions can you actually deliver?
Okay, so I'm picking, just to explain it, the way we're setting up our documents is I'm trying to set out a vision for what each of these areas can be in the future. And I'm deliberately saying we're not going to achieve that vision, because lots of politicians will make promises about things that they actually can deliver, and it's not true. They won't get delivered in that time frame. And then every one of our actions has been time-stamped by me based on what I did in government, and I think I can deliver every one of those. Some of them are preliminary. It might be finding a site. It might be getting planning permission and trying to look for funding for a new building. It's not necessarily delivering that building. And so we've deliberately done it that way so that people can hold me and indeed ultimately the officials of the council accountable to deliver all the actions. And the only reason we won't deliver any of those actions is that somewhere between now and 5 years from now, it doesn't make sense anymore for Limerick because something has changed. We've 111 in the first one. It's 149 in this one. I'm hoping we'll have a few less in the next one because it shouldn't keep climbing like that. But it is possible with the right organizational structure to track a couple of hundred actions over 5 years and deliver them all. You just have to have a proper system. You have to allocate responsibility and have deadlines for everything. And as actions get done, as somebody mentioned about the positivity for Limerick, actually the positivity of the whole place lifts because we see things happening. And so as I said, I've gone through it with that structure. It's probably a different structure than others will want to do, but it's really important for me that if I say I will do something, that it will get done. And that's the reason for identifying things that we know will get done in 5 years rather than pretending to do stuff that I know will take too long. So listen, thank you all for the time. Actually, Stephen, was there one?
John, I just, if you'll permit me, there's...
as long as I don't have to go outside in this rain, I'll go with you.
No. I've been giving... Can you hear me? Yeah. I've been giving John a dig out on this campaign over the last while. And I drove down from Dublin this evening because I believe in him. And I think everybody in this room would agree he's the best candidate by far. Stephen O'Byrne's is my name. I'm from Kildimo originally. We had a meeting there with some neighbours of mine. I think it was your first meeting, John, was it?
Yeah, it was
on
actually.
The campaign. The point, and the only reason I'm raising this here is to hopefully get some support in the room for this. I think John is the outstanding candidate. He has the outstanding policies, but he's got to get elected. And we don't have a ground campaign. And I think there's 6 weeks left, and the most important thing now, funny, you might disagree with me, John, is not your policies. You're oozing policies, and you'll win any debate in any forum over the next 6 weeks. But from my little knowledge of being down recently a few times, people are not aware of you. They don't know you around the county. I don't know. You're better known probably in the city. When you prompt them, yes, there's a recognition and an awareness of your role in the Department of Finance and so forth. But there's going to have to be a ground campaign on this. So I think it's vital that we get, billboard-style posters of John. It only needs to be a handful of them on the main arterial routes. The Coast Road, the road to Newcastle West, the Cork Road, the Tipperary Road. If you had 2 or 3 large billboard posters with what we see here this evening, Moran for Mayor, More for Limerick, go to the website. I think that's, but you need foot soldiers for that. So this is the reason I'm making this call on your behalf, even though we haven't discussed this. But what I'm really saying is that you need people. You need people to sign up for what I would call a bit of dirty work, grubby work. Going out, getting posters ready, going to landowners, getting their permission to put them up at strategic points along those routes that I've mentioned. I think next Sunday there'll be 20 to 25,000 Limerick people, like myself, and I'm sure a lot in this room, heading out to the Gaelic grounds. I think if you had even a dozen people on Sunday at the Shannon Bridge, Sarsfield Bridge, Thomond Bridge, and a few wandering down around the Gaelic grounds with a sandwich board of your picture, your name, front and back. You don't need any literature. You don't need to engage with the public. They're just seeing you there or seeing your foot soldiers there, and they become aware of you. And I think, we could reach 25,000 people next Sunday in 2 hours. And I think the policy thing is very important. And please God, if you're elected, all this can start to happen, and that's what I believe in. But I do believe that more critically important in the next 6 weeks is making sure that the public at large throughout the city and county become aware of you, and that has to be taken to them. It's not going to happen passively. We have to, take the campaign to the people. Thanks.
Well, thank you for that, Stephen. I guess I can't disagree with anything you said, right? So it gets to the idea of the volunteers and ultimately anybody who's got a hammer and some nails, or we have some wood, we can do that. And maybe, John, you can find a couple of those farmers that can actually give us a couple of bales of hay or whatever to actually do it. But it's a serious point. And if people could actually volunteer and help, just please come to Calum afterwards, or any of the other guys with the Patrick or others. I'd be more than happy. And even if you want to do it after, during the course of the week, or come on Saturday, please do so. Or tell your friends, even more importantly. Listen, I want to give a round of applause to Calum, to Stephen for intervening, to our radio guys, to the organisers, to the lads with to Brian and Patrick, but more importantly to the panel, because I know I sprung this on you about a week ago and said, yeah, you have to kind of think about this and come up here. And it's not easy to face a crowd and have open questions. So I really want to appreciate it. Another round of applause to these guys, and I'll leave it there.